agreement among all of them is this: as long as the war continues, even if you go home, you cannot go and meet with your wife. So Uriah was a faithful soldier. So what did he do? He just hung out with the king's servants. He slept by the king's gate. When morning came, he came to see the king, that he was ready to go. And the king asked him, "How was your rest?" Uriah said, "Oh, I had a good time with your servants, my lord." And the king said, "My servants? How is your wife?" Uriah said, "My king, I did not see my wife. I had a good time with your servants. My brethren cannot be fighting war while I will be home with my wife. That would not be right, my king. So I'm ready to go back to the war front and join my brethren so that we can continue the fight." David was stunned. He was shocked. And so he thought to himself, maybe Uriah was lying. He probably did not stay here. I'm sure he went home. So he sent for the servants to find out that, by the way, what time did Uriah get back? I'm embellishing the story for you so that you can understand the impact. What time did Uriah get back this morning? And the servants told the king, "Oh, Uriah was with us all night. He was telling us about all the challenges of the wars, how they were fighting the war, and how they were all strengthened even by the prayer that was going on by the king's people." Not only one person witnessed Uriah staying at the king's gate, not two, not three, but all his servants were witnesses. So even if the king wants to say that Uriah lied, there were witnesses to confirm that Uriah did not lie. So the king, in his confusion, he decided that, okay, there's another thing that needs to be done. He wrote a letter through Uriah. And he gave the letter to Uriah, sealed the letter, that Uriah should take that letter to their commander when they got to the war front. Nobody knew the content of the letter except the king and God, and obviously the person that will receive the letter. So when Uriah left, the Bible made us to know that the content of the letter basically says this: Uriah was carrying a letter to the commander-in-chief at the war front. And the letter says, "Commander, this is your king. The bearer of this letter, after he delivers the letter, put him in front of the battle, where the battle is fierce. Put him right in the front. And when he gets to the front, let everybody retreat." That was the letter he carried to the commander-in-chief. So when the commander received the letter, he had no idea why the king gave that instruction. As a matter of fact, it does not matter the reason for the instruction. When the king gives an instruction, the instruction must be carried out. And so the commander did exactly what the king said. And so they put Uriah at the war front, and everybody retreated as the battle became fierce, and Uriah died at the battle. When Uriah died, and they sent word to the king said, "Okay, so now I'm free to do whatever I need to do concerning this woman that is pregnant." So he sent for Bathsheba. Bathsheba came, and he said, "You can move into the palace now." So Bathsheba moved into the palace. But even if nobody knew what had happened, there is somebody that knew exactly what happened, and that was God. Not only that, but God has also put into the hearts of his children his spirit, that the spirit will not let you rest when sin lies at your door. And so the heart of David David was constantly pounding as a result of this thing that he has done. The first thing he did was he did not go to war when he needed to go to war. The second thing he did was he committed adultery. The third thing he did was he tried to cover his sins. And the fourth thing he did is he committed murder in the process of covering his sin. How many of those sins was David guilty of? All of them. Guilty of all of them. And so the heart of David began to trouble him. His heart began to pound. Every minute he wakes up, his heart is pounding. You see, whenever your heart is pounding like that, you need to search yourself. Is there something in me that God is not happy about? Is there something that is going on in me that I need to turn to God for forgiveness for? What exactly it is? You need to ask God for those things. When you are not at peace, there is something that you need to check yourself for, and the Lord will reveal it to you. The heart of David began to pound day and night. Bathsheba continued to carry the pregnancy. And the Bible made us to know that it got to a point that the word of God came to David through a prophet. And the word of God said, that child that came forth, the child was born, that child will die. That child will die. When the child was born, David thought everything was covered. All his sins were covered, right? All his sins were covered. But the child fell sick. And it was to the point of death. And the prophet said the child will die. And David began to call on God. David began to call on God. David said he knew he had sinned. He even said in iniquity his mother conceived him. And in sin he continued to grow. And he acknowledged his sin before God. And he said, God, spare this child. It is not the child that sinned, it is me that has sinned. Spare this child. David began to fast and pray. The Bible made us to know that all day long David did not get up. He was crying and weeping unto God and asking God to please spare the child. And the Bible made us to know that it got to a point that the servants came running to David. And they told David, the child is dead. When David heard that the child was dead, David got up.